he played as much as he admires Kobe Bryant. I think he plays a lot more like LeBron James.
The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Let me take it away with
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Sideline Summit. I'm Antonio Perez, joined by Chris Culture Boy CB. Danny could not make it today. He is fighting his way back from Portugal, but we're glad he had a blast. We're going to hold things down for him today. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Denver Nuggets because they need their love. They just did something special. We're going to talk about the Celtics Heat, how this is like the scrappiest, like this is the most likely I feel like a 3-0 comeback would happen, but obviously the odds are still in the Heat's favor very much. We're going to talk about LeBron, talking about he might be considering retirement and how we think that might be more cap. And then we'll be talking about Victor Wembanyama, who will be, last time we talked about potential spots he could go to, but he will be going to the Spurs, which none of us chose. And yeah, so we have a lot of almost, I don't want to say we're not really talking about basketball games essentially for the most part. Besides Heat Celtics, we're talking about Jokic, LeBron, Wemby, and then the series that's going on. But before we get into any of that, Chris, how are you doing today? What are the summits and the plummets for today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm having a great hump day. I'm happy to be off work, first of all. So that's part of my summit. One of my summits for today is, like y'all know, I'm a WNBA fan. I love the WNBA. Brianna Stu Durant had broke the New York Liberty's record in her second game playing. Only her second game playing. She's at 40. I want to say she had 45 and 10. I'm trying to tell you, she's literally Kevin Durant with the ponytail.
It was something like that. Yeah.
She's different. She's very different. So that's my son. I really love seeing that. And then, like I said, that Liberty team, once they figure it out, man, they look good. So it was cool to watch WNBA basketball this past weekend, like when it started on, like last weekend. This weekend was some good games on. I got to see the Aces play with their full lineup. Got to see the Liberty play with their new team. That was really dope. So that's my summit. My plummet is obviously the Lakers getting swept by the Nuggets, but I mean it's more of a happy time, honestly, because let you tell it doesn't matter if you don't make the finals. So
if you lose before the finals, it's okay. It's all good.
So yay.
It's okay.
Yay.
One thing about WNBA that I was actually I thought of this right on the spot with Stewart obviously breaking the franchise record and mentioned she played like Kevin Durant. Cause makes me think is when Devin Booker got Kevin Durant on his team, he was like, that's cool. I'm not taking a back seat. I wonder how Sabrina is going to take this season with Stewart coming in, who's probably obviously right now the better player, but the sky is the limit for Sabrina, and her shoes are fire. So
and on top of that, Tom, before you finish, it's another player they added too. They added Jonquel Jones as well. She was like the best player on I want to say she's on the Sun last year, the Connecticut Sun last year. So I'm really interested to see how Sabrina plays with talent. Same thing we were talking about in the text message with Caitlin Clark. We've seen them be goats by themselves, but I want to see, her with talent, to see what she does, how she expands her game. So
yeah, and I think as the more they mold together, the more she'll be able to see I'm not getting the attention I'm used to getting. I'm getting one-on-one looks. I can move off ball. I can make plays off ball. So yeah, the Liberty are going to be the Liberty and the Aces are on a steamroll to end up playing each other at some point in a very meaningful basketball game. But my summit has been the Celtics. I mean, you shouldn't be in the situation anyway, but you avoid the sweep. Very happy. Believe it or not, Jason Tatum's actually been playing very well this series. And I'm not here to defend his first two fourth quarters. I mean, he was turning the ball over a lot, and I was just saying he is getting he's getting top 5 player in the world attention, while the superstar he's playing against is not, and that's a coaching thing, of course. Painsworth was talking about that on Twitter. It's that's definitely a coaching thing, but nonetheless, you get on the board, you go back to TD Garden, and they've yet to have a Jaylen Brown game. So I don't know. You take it one game at a time. We'll get more into the Heat Celtics series later. My plummet, I kind of just want to say, like, they're always a plummet, but NBA Twitter, it's just like I've been seeing a lot of Michael Jordan propaganda on my timeline, like first time ever. And Chris tweeted this out earlier. There's so much GOAT material for Michael Jordan. Like, you do not have to utter a single word about LeBron James, and you could probably argue Michael Jordan's the GOAT. And same thing with LeBron James. I like debating with those people. Now, of course, your goal is to make the other player sound out to be the better, better than the other guy. But if you can do it without even like lying about the other guy, because like both fans do it, they just lie, no context of like, oh well, LeBron got swept. Oh yeah, well Mike got swept. I'm like, well, LeBron is in year 20, and the expectation for him is still, the limit. Obviously,
year 10.
getting swept isn't ideal, but it's a team sport. And same thing with Mike. When Mike was getting swept by the 80s version of the Warriors in the Boston Celtics, it's a team sport. Like, that's not a good Bulls team. Those Bulls teams were making it with by
solely
10 games under 500. Like, those teams had no business being in the playoffs. So I just want to say, like, both most LeBron fans and most MJ fans are completely delusional, and everyone who said Kwame Brown cooked in that video is also a plummet, because
literally
LeBron James, the guy with 39,000, going to have 40,000 points next season, has no bag. I'm sorry, it don't look like. Look, not everybody got a bag like AI, Jamal Crawford, Kyrie Irving. Some people just bang one dribble spin move. Like, LeBron could take one dribble and get from the 3-point line to the cup. Look, it ain't pretty. It's not aesthetic. And that's the thing. People get so caught up with aesthetic bags and scoring instead of just like who is the best at doing it. And even Michael Jordan didn't have like a bag per se. He was
just
simple.
the first one. He was the first one with what he did. So it looked like his bag was crazier than it really was. Yep.
Exactly. And it's because he could palm a basketball and hold it over Muggsy Bogues' head. So
and that was cool.
They love that. They love that video. They eat that video up. I'm like, look, it's cool, but like, really? Like, this is, come on. You could find a random December game in 1985 that would trump that highlight reel. But anyway, nonetheless, we're gonna go right into Jokic, talking about all-time greats. Nikola Jokic obviously is now the second ever Western Conference Finals MVP. He said he don't give a crap. He's averaging a triple-double through these playoff runs. This is fun. It's fun. Like, I think me and you can always attest to something. Like, when a player is not playing your team, like when Jokic is not playing your team, oh, this is fun. This is so fun. He's unusual. But I want to ask you, outside of the big five centers, as in Kareem, Bill, Wilt, Shaq, Hakeem, can Jokic find him? First of all, is Jokic right outside of them now? And if he's not, can a Finals MVP insert him at the 6th spot?
I've been thinking about this recently because I was going through my top 5 of who I thought top 5 center was and like where I would put Jokic. And I have my answer to this is I personally think right now he's like 8, like somewhere right behind David Robinson range, like in that space, like. Because you said the 5 right there, I'm agree with you in that 5. Whatever order, doesn't matter. But that's the top 5. I agree. But right after that, especially if Tim Duncan's not a center, he's a power forward. I think Jokic is close. I think he's really close. Because I think the only other person I would put over him, like definitively, just off the top of my head, would be David Robinson. I wouldn't throw a Bill Walton. I wouldn't throw a Patrick Ewing. None of those guys, because I think Jokic is he's done more. So, like as far as career wise, he's led his team to Western Conference Finals before. Now he's done it again. He's had two MVPs. He probably should have had 3 the way he finished. Like the way this is going, like his vision is going to be crazy, but he might have should have had 3. So now it's like, if he gets to this point having 2 MVPs and having a Finals MVP and sweeping top 3 player of all time, no debate, in LeBron James on his way to it, this is going to be an impressive title. And in my opinion, he'll have to be right outside of the top 5. And then I think you have to look at everybody's numbers really close to see. But I think it's going to be tough to get into that top 5 because it's such a deep class with You got Kareem, Wilt, who's like a mythical creature, and Shaq, who we saw is a mythical creature. So it's like it's gonna be difficult to get into that top 5, but I think he's right outside of it now. And then like a Finals MVP easily bring him to that right on the cusp of top 5.
Something I just thought of. I think in terms of like accolades, when it's all said and done, Jokic is going to have like a million All NBA teams. He might even crack another MVP. That gives him 3 MVPs. That's more than like Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry, Shaq. Like he's going to have a pretty sick resume when it's all said and done. And what he has in common with the top 5 centers, I think, they all got some like special. Like Kareem had the sky hook, and he was the all-time leading scorer. Shaq, most dominant player of all time. A lot of people will agree with that in his prime. Bill Russell, best winner to ever touch professional sports. 11-time champion. Did it as a player coach. Did it in an era that was not easy for African Americans, especially in a city like Boston at the time. Will Chamberlain, not real. Is not really an actual human. He's a figment of artificial intelligence that they plugged in next to Bill Russell to make it seem like Bill had a rival. And then Hakeem has Kobe Bryant like footwork for someone who's like 7 feet tall. He's also one of the best defenders in NBA history. And for a 2-year stretch was the best player in basketball when Michael Jordan sat out and had to think of his prime. Nikola Jokic is the best passing big man ever. And someone argue he's legit just a top 5 passer ever. Like, and he can score at all 3 levels. And the thing is, he doesn't have to. And I don't know. He's got something special about him that's going to go along with a super, super great resume.
I think one thing that makes him special too is how he gets older at 20. I think he's 28 now. Like if you've watched him since his game has matured, he's added a lot as far as how he plays the game. I think that's why they beat the Nuggets ultimately, because they all played solid enough defense. But I was telling you guys on the show, I'm like, I don't know if Jokic is going to get into the point where he dominates the game scoring. He did it, and he picked his spots when he did it. Younger Jokic wouldn't have done that. He would have kept passing it and been. I think he's grown into maturing into who he is as a player. And I think that's what should make the NBA scared, especially if he's going to keep Jamal Murray playing. If Jamal Murray's going to play at a high level like that, they're going to be hell to deal with for years.
Yeah, Jamal Murray was awesome. Like he was spectacular. That is what 4 good Jamal Murray games looks like. It makes the Nuggets a very hard team to beat because people are just going to feed off of it. And when guys aren't hitting their shots, Jokic got them. He's got their back. And then when Jamal starts hitting his shots, Jokic is like, you got it. And he's hitting his shots. MPJ's hitting his shots. KCP's hitting his shots, which revisionist history, I guess, for Lakers fans are like, oh, why wasn't KCP doing this when he was in LA? Y'all won a championship because of his help. He was y'all ultimate 3-and-D player. If you go back, y'all were killing Danny Green, but
KCP should have been the one to stay. And I think what about Jokic too? He's like the thing you touched there that you said, Tom. I think that is a big point. Even when his guys aren't going, he gets them easier shots. Two ways. You can just throw it into him as a big man. He can create his own shot, and you have to double him. Which, if you're a shooter, you're going to get more open shots. If you're a cutter like Bruce Brown, you're going to get open cuts because there's so much attention focused on him. So it's kind of hard for his team to get out of rhythm for real, because he's always gonna set the rhythm of the game because of how he plays and controls the game at the center spot, which is it's like that's the beauty of having a center who's basically your point guard. Like he's able to control from wherever he is on the court, and it keeps everybody flowing in that rhythm too.
Yeah, and that's one thing. You talking about double teaming Jokic. What Embiid fans will like to say a lot is they'll compare numbers. They'll be like, oh well, Embiid doesn't get doubled, or Jokic doesn't get doubled like Embiid does. There's a reason for that. You can't double Nikola Jokic because he has eyes in the back of his head, and he'll find the open man no matter what. Embiid, on the other hand, he got doubled a lot against Brooklyn, and he made the right plays out of them, but that's relatively easier. He started getting doubled against Boston, who have lengthy players everywhere: Tatum, Brown, Horford, Williams. In the 2 games where Missoula went to the double big lineup, Embiid just crumbled under, double teams. I hate to make a segment about Jokic, about Joel Embiid, but it just shows the difference, and this shows why Nikola Jokic is so special. So what I'll say is, right now, I think he's a two-time MVP. He's probably going to finish top 25 all time, most likely top 20. He's already a two-time MVP, two-time first-team All NBA. He's having an all-time peak, I would say. But a Finals MVP to go along with it, I would probably put him over Dirk if he isn't already. Karl Malone for sure. I think the highest person you could probably argue his all-timeness with is like my 13 to like 16 range. It features guys like KD, Dr. J, and like the Big O. I think you could start to throw him maybe in those categories. And it's weird because like his counting stats aren't like jumping
Crazy
out
yet.
the gym, but like just wait. I think I think he has a game that can feature some longevity. I think he can keep it up for a while, but like Finals MVP, with a Finals MVP and the track that he's on, I think this could really be a top 15 player of all time. He's awesome, and this isn't recency bias.
Yeah, I think
this is just he's finally got a team.
I think that ring will have a Dirk effect, Tone. Kind of what you're saying, like how Dirk was. He was always solidified. Like, yeah, Dirk's the top 5 power forward in our game. Like everybody said it when it was Dirk, KG, Tim Duncan. Like he was always in that conversation. But that finals run, like you said, against when he had his finals run against the Heat and all those teams he beat, it's like that one championship and one Finals MVP that he had. That's all he needed to cement him into a lot of those top 5, top 6 power forward conversations. And I think it's going to be that for Nikola Jokic this season too, because like you said, I think this is that thing, especially because I think he's going to keep it up. He's 28 now. His game doesn't need athleticism, like you said, or any of that stuff. So he can still be the same player for 10 more years. His stats will catch up to what he has done now, and I think it'll be difficult once you revisit this run right here if he does win the championship to keep him out of those top 5 discussions.
I agree. And speaking of that legendary Dirk run, we'll talk about some random role player who got outplayed by Jason Terry that series. Guy named LeBron James.
So nasty. Oh my God.
Oh man. If that's one thing I would definitely erase off his resume.
Yes, please.
But anyway, LeBron. Yeah. I don't. What am I even talking about? To be quite honest, the Mavs and the Heat only played one time in the NBA Finals, and Dwayne Wade took it home. What are we talking about? 2011 was a complete void and just didn't happen. But anyway, the LeBron is considering retirement, and a lot of people know that's probably cap because he wants to play. Yeah, he wanted to play with his son, and this is definitely like he just gave us like an okay playoff run for LeBron standards, but he has a lot left in the tank, to say the least. What message do you think he's trying to get across by saying like, oh, I'm contemplating retirement? Do you think it's I'm gonna actually like take 1 year off, come back when Bronny's ready, or do you think maybe it's like a management thing where he's trying to like mess with the Lakers and get them to follow his plan?
Yeah, I think with me watching Bron so long, I know what version this is. This is like LeBron James right here. This is the one who set the lion stone to get. This is the same trick he did with Dan Gilbert, same trick he tried to pull with Pat Riley, and Pat Riley didn't do it. And I like it. I'm a fan of this move right here. This is a move where it says, hey, I know I'm getting old. I know it. I showed it. Either you go get me Kyrie Irving or you bring back the core that I want to. I think it's more of a getting management's head type thing. I don't think it has anything to do with Bronny for real. Because my honest opinion on Bronny, I don't think he's going to be ready after 1 year. I think he's going to take him 2. That's my honest opinion. So I don't think that's as big of a thing into it. I think it's more of you saw what we did when we made that turnaround in the middle of the season. I don't want to have to wait until the middle of the season again. I'll wait. I'll have this surgery and I'll have you guys show me what the team's about for those first couple months of the season. Then I'll come back. I think it's one of those things, like a tactic really more so for management to get me what I want. And you can hate it or love it, but at the end of the day, as a basketball player who's earned that type of right the same way a Curry would or KD would, a player of that caliber, he's earned that right to say and do what he's doing. So I think it's more of like a thing to get management to do the offseason moves that he wants and not have to wait until trade deadline and try to get a valid team together.
Yeah, I like that one because, of course, he's going to need that foot surgery if he wants to be the guy we saw before that before and even during that Mavericks 27-point comeback. One thing that I think that I think I heard. I'm not 100% sure. I think the main two guys the Lakers are going to try to retain are obviously Austin Reeves and Rui
And Rui.
Hachimura.
Mhm.
Rui had an astounding playoff run for the times. Like, he wasn't given much time in the Warriors series, but he was really good against Memphis, and he was really good against the Nuggets. He provided good two-way play there. Obviously, Austin Reeves has been killer for them for 2 years
Yep.
now, and deserves to be in those big bad conversations. I hope LeBron has learned his lesson from the Russell Westbrook thing, and this isn't a shot at Kyrie Irving at all. Kyrie Irving is much better than Russell Westbrook. But what I think he's got to learn that look at the recipe that's worked. You, AD, and a bunch of dogs. Now, obviously, you're gonna have to pay these dogs. What if you're the Lakers? I think you'd much rather have Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura than one of those guys and Kyrie Irving, because
Yep.
both of those guys, at least Rui's a great defender. Austin Reeves is above average defender in my opinion. He has all the tools to become a better defender as well. Kyrie Irving's 31 at this point, or 30. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but what you see from him is what you're going to get. And of course, he's spectacular. You don't want to be tight on money and be tight on the future like you already are. Rui's still young. You could somewhere down the line. I know Chris isn't a big fan of Kawhi Leonard, and I'm not saying Rui can turn into Kawhi Leonard, but
I
he
see
could
what you're
be a
saying.
22. He can give you 22 points per game on all NBA level defense down the road. Austin Reeves can give you good scoring, playmaking, and above average defense down the road. I hope LeBron. I hope this isn't LeBron's way of saying I want Kyrie. I hope
Mhm.
LeBron realized you should realistically run this back. Yeah, you got
And
swept,
man,
but
you're so right.
yeah.
You're so right.
And at
You're
the
so
end
right.
of the day, they did get swept. But imagine, like Malik Beasley said this. Imagine a training camp. Imagine
Thank you.
82 games of this team together. Now, mind you, if this team includes D'Angelo Russell, I'm fine with that. That's fine. He had a stinker of a playoff, sort of, but he had big moments. He did have big moments, and but if you don't run it back, simplest answer. I was telling my brother this: run Austin Reeves at point guard. He can handle
That's
the
all you have
ball.
to do.
He can
Literally.
play make well enough. Especially you have LeBron James on the team. Why the hell? Put LeBron at point, and then you could put AR at shooting guard. You could put Rui at small forward. You could put AD at power forward, so he stops being a little crybaby. And then you can
And
just
get
sign a
Naz
vet
Reid.
center.
Thank God. Oh, sorry. I was trying to get Naz Reid from
Not
Timberwolves. I've been trying to speak it into existence.
or I mean, Tristan Thompson gave you the liveliest 9 minutes I've ever seen.
Oh, he's the backup big man. I tweeted that on
That
the day. I was like,
that
the
was
crazy
that was a
part about it
tryout.
is there was a
That was
tryout.
just
It was literally
tryouts
just
for
a
next
tryout.
year because they're gonna be in cap hell.
And that's the point right there. Tony just said it. That's why you don't get Kyrie or Trae Young. And I'm a huge Trae Young fan. All my friends know that I was saying the Hawks was my team 3 years ago. Before that whole Knicks fiasco, I love Trae Young. But the problem is you have to get through a regular season. That's what Brian has to realize. Brian's 38,000 years old. Anthony Davis' body's 40,000 years old. Kyrie Irving may play, he may not. And it's not a shot at those guys, just a fact of the situation. If they're all been around 60, 65 games the last 3 years, AD and Brian missed a lot of games last year on the same night. And if you're going to be in that spot where you only pay one of Rui and Reeves, and just say, for example, we got Kyrie and Brian and AD sitting out, so now you got Rui and a bunch of minimum contract. I mean, you got Reeves and a bunch of minimum contracts out there. You can't survive the West like that. So, like you said, I think it's better to just understand that depth is going to get you past the season. Like if Brian was 28, he could play 38 minutes a night, 82 games. Cool, it's different, but it's not that way anymore. So now you have to be smart about it. And you have to plan for the future now, like as far as being able to finish out the full season. Yeah, not in the regular season because you have to get through the Denvers, the Phoenixes, the Clippers. Even though I'm not a huge fan of the Clippers are going to have depth if they're going to keep that team together, so they can get through a regular season and get you 48 to 52 wins just because of how hard they're going to play because they're going to have the bodies to do so. And at this point in time, you want AD and Bron and whoever that other person is, you would want them to be rested. They wouldn't be able to do both. You can't be rested and make it through if you're playing 65 games a season. It just won't happen like that. So I think you got to be smarter.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I know we'll both agree on, like people are like, was LeBron's tenure in LA successful? He missed playoffs, won the final, though casually throw in, won an NBA championship. Uh, lost in the first round, missed playoffs, swept in the Western Conference Finals. Okay, he made the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, he got swept. That's a bad way to go out. They were looking bleak at a point in the season. I mean, obviously that was not the team that we're looking at now, but nonetheless.
Yeah.
And the thing is, once you provide context for those years, it's called excuses. It's not excuses. It's just context of what, like Michael Jordan. He I believe I saw this somewhere on Twitter. Obviously, you don't get your information on Twitter. Back everything up. And I'm going to back this up when this episode's over. Michael Jordan and his Wizards were actually the 5th seed. And then I think he got a hip injury. They were on pace to go make a playoffs. If I said, oh, they missed it because he got hurt, is that excuses? No, it's just context because Mike is great. Same with LeBron. Year 1, they were the 4 seed, and then he hurt his groin. Yep. That team was baller. I love the 2019 Lakers. The 2018, 2019 Lakers, they were so fun. But anyway, and then they lose to the Phoenix Suns. They had them on the ropes until AD got hurt. Like, seriously had them on the ropes. Now, of course, you would like to, like, oh, well, an all-time great would pull that through. I'm like, AD was a big part of that team. And Dennis Schroeder was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Then you move on next year. LeBron and AD played 22 games together. That's not going to cut it, man. It's really not. And Russell Westbrook, he's an awesome, awesome, awesome player. He's really, really good at basketball. He does not fit as a third option on any team he'll ever be on. The best shot he ever had in an NBA championship was being the 2-man, being the playmaker for Paul George in OKC. And they lost because, well, Damian Lillard had one.
Yeah, because Joe Ingles dropped Paul George for a series.
Joe Ingles started dropping him off and stuff. But nonetheless, we can move on to another potential all-time great, soon to be. Victor Wembanyama is going to be a San Antonio Spur. And on the night it happened, Danny was kind of like he wasn't bashing. He was just kind of like, it's just boring. And I was like, yeah, you could think that way. Could San Antonio, but it's going to be fun. First year, they probably won't make the playoffs, in my opinion. But I think it gets to evaluate. Oh my, I can't even talk. It gets them to process the talent around them. I just gave up on evaluate. I can't do it right now. I can't do it. So they're processing the talent around Wemby in year 1. Can Keldon Johnson be a serviceable number 2 on a competitive team? I think he's very good. He was a 20-point per game scorer last year. And everyone knows in a pop system, you can't really go out there and just inflate your stats. You get a 20, it's a real 20. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And then you can see Jeremy Sohan, see what you got out of him. Trey Jones, I think Chris is too, big fans of Trey Jones and his brother Tyus, of course. Yep. If Trey can be a player like Tyus, that's a guy you want around Vic.
That's all he has to do.
Straight playmaking. He doesn't need to get a lot of, points. And then on defense, they called him the sheriff back in Cameron Indoor Stadium. He was the sheriff. He was player of the year in the ACC, defensive player of the year in ACC as a 5'11", a 6-foot tall
point guard.
Yep. 5'11" point guard, defensive player of the year in probably the best basketball conference in the country.
Yep.
In that year, particularly because they had them and North Carolina both gunning for the national championship. Anyway, so yeah, I think Wemby to the Spurs is going to be awesome. I think it's going to be very awesome. And I think they'll be competitive enough to where they could fall around like the 10 to 14 pick maybe. And if Chris is hopefully wrong about Bron, I would like to see Bronny in the NBA ASAP because LeBron's old as hell. 100%. But let's say Bronny keeps his status as a lottery pick. I don't know if he'll be a top 10 pick. Probably not unless he goes like Lonzo, UCLA, USC. Yeah. But that 10 to 14 range, the Spurs are picking there. You pick up Bronny, and that's just another Trey Jones-like player, except Bronny is a better scorer, and he has more potential in every aspect of the game because he has those Lud genetics.
Yep.
It's going to be awesome. I want to know your thought, and of course, Coach Pop. Duh. But I want to hear your thoughts on Wemby to the Spurs, and if you have thoughts on what should be Scoot Henderson to the Hornets if they don't mess it up. Just your thoughts on those teams.
Yeah, honestly, Wemby to the Spurs has kind of grown on me a little bit, mainly because of the reason you said. I'm a big Keldon Johnson fan. Duke and UK are my two favorite college teams. I mean, that's kind of casual sounding, but for a long time. And I've watched Keldon for a long time. He came in as a scoring guard, like a shoot every shot guard. He's starting to realize what being NBA small forward is, and I really love that for Keldon. So I think he'd be a good running mate for Wemby. And the fact they already extended his contract, and he's only getting like 18 a year, makes it easier to put guys around him that makes him not the second option, make him more of a third and fourth to where it makes more sense. You can continue to build your team out. So I like that for Wemby. I mean, being coached by Pop in that system, I mean, he's had Tim Duncan, he's had David Robinson. I wouldn't want anybody else to coach him if I could pick and choose, you know. So I think that's dope. And I think the way the Spurs are set up, and Jeremy Shonen has become my least favorite player over the last couple of days.
I knew you were going to say it.
Of course that. But as an actual basketball player, he's actually pretty good. Like what he does and brings to the game is very valuable. And especially with next to a guy like Wemby, if they're going to play Wemby at the 5, like I think they probably will. Shonen is a good guy to have next to him. He's going to defend, rebound, do all the stuff that Wemby can do, but you want to kind of keep your star away from doing it if he doesn't have to. So I kind of like that. Feel like having Trey Jones, Devin Vassell. Like they have a young core to where it's like Wemby can come in and play with guys who clearly gotten good NBA experience over this last year and a half. And Devin Vassell, I think, is going to be a really good two-guard in the league. Branham as well.
Damn.
Yeah, and Malachi Branham, St. Vincent, same area alum too. I know that's really random. I know that, but yes, he is. I think he's going to be pretty good as well. So I like what the Spurs have going on. And I think the last thing about the Spurs, they'll have the pieces it'll make some restricted free agents when it gets time to look at new teams. Well, are they going to match or they're not going to match? The Spurs is going to be a place to look for because even if Pop is gone by then, you don't mind playing for the San Antonio Spurs coaching tree, unless you're Steven Jackson and DeJounte Murray. Those are the only two people I ever heard say they didn't like playing over there. So if you're not them two, I'm pretty sure you might want to go over there as a restricted free agent, and it opens up room for the Spurs to be creative in the years to come. So I think that's cool for them. And I want, and I know you asked about the Hornets too. Last thing about the Hornets, I hope the guy takes Scoot Henderson. Like I don't overthink it. Don't
yes.
Don't overthink it.
Don't.
And I like Brandon Miller. I do like Brandon Miller. I like him as a basketball player. I know he had a crappy tournament, but Brandon Miller's a baller. He's going to be good wherever he goes.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% think so. Scoot Henderson's the type of player, if Wemby wasn't in this draft, he'd be number one consensus in my opinion. Like, I don't think it would be much of a question if Wemby wasn't in this draft. And I think they lucked up into getting LaMelo. It could have went a bunch of different ways. Melo could have went to the Warriors, and Wiseman could have failed to the Hornets. You never know. So I think when you have talent like that, and the Hornets always pass on talent. They pass on talent by picking Gilchrist, Joe Henderson. I don't even have to go down the line. You don't mess this up. Like you pick the best player available, and you solidify your backcourt. And you can't say because Scoot's smaller, you played with Terry Rozier the last 2 years as your shooting guard. That's not an excuse. You pick Scoot. That's all I say.
Yeah,
Please pick Scoot.
I agree. I said this on Twitter. I think LaMelo and Scoot in transition, along with Miles Bridges potentially being back, you're looking at like a baby Lob City. It'll be fun.
And
don't overthink it. Look, Brandon Miller is super cool, and he's a good scorer. I just don't see him. I'm going to be so honest, and this could be very brutal about this draft class. I'm not sure about anyone past 2 just being like the best player on a championship team. I don't know if anyone can mold it. All of them could probably be a 2. I think the Thompson twins can be very good. They of course have to get their jump shot together, but they'll be really good players. Blanket on the name, the kid out of Houston is going to be awesome. He's going to be so good. Jarius Walker is going to be so good. I know he's going to be good. I don't know if I see a number 1 in a lot of these guys. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm just being spoiled because the first 2 guys would go number 1 overall in like 95% of like modern era drafts. But nonetheless, yeah, I agree. I think those guys would obviously be the first 2 picks. And I think they're like okay landing spots. The only problem with just like Hornets is like, that would be a weird fit. But then again, you could also just stagger their minutes. And then things will work out from there. So Miami Heat versus the Boston Celtics. The Heat were up 3-0. They are now still up 3-1. Odds still heavily in their favor. Something that I've been thinking about with this series, with 3-0 series in basketball, the only way that someone could come back from that is 1, the most valuable or best player on the team that's up 3-0 gets hurt. And then the whole team just falls into pieces, which is not happening with the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler will go out there in a walking boot if need
Honestly,
be.
would.
The
Mm-hmm.
second way is if the more talented team just finds themselves down 3-0, which is what the Celtics are in right now. They steal game 4. They played beautiful basketball in the second half, forcing turnovers, blocking shots, getting out in transition, which is what they absolutely have to do. You got game 5 in the Garden. You haven't been pretty at home, but the fans are going to be electric for you. If they win game 5, game 7, Miami's game 7 is game 6. They
100%.
cannot lose that game. Because if it's going back game 7 in the Garden, we've seen what happened. The Heat got way more heart than the Philadelphia 76ers. But Jason Tatum has been lights out in elimination games his entire career outside of game 6 last year in the NBA Finals, which
also
I wish
didn't
he would
happen.
have. Yeah, completely false. He wasn't even on the team. The Celtics didn't make the finals last year. Anyway, but yeah, the Heat could very well just end this in 5. They've already won 2 games in Boston. Celtics haven't been pretty at home. Or if they lose this game, they could very well just wrap things up at home, which they have a dominant win at home already. But if a 3-0 comeback were to ever happen, this is the situation where it's lined up to become true, in my opinion. So I want to hear your thoughts. I'm clearly biased. I'm talking out my ass. So I want to hear it from a guy who loves Jimmy Butler, loves Jason Tatum, just likes the guys he sees on the court.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think if there would be a time to come back, I mean, out of all the ones I've seen recently, I didn't think the Lakers would come back. I'm the biggest Bron fan. You probably fine. I just didn't see it happening. But this is the thing with the Heat, with how great they're playing and how great this run is, and how incredible Jimmy Butler is. I hope my friend Matt hears this. Incredible Jimmy Butler is. I have to enunciate that because he actually is incredible. I'm done hating. He's incredible. They only go as far as the shooting goes in reality. Like the 3-point shooting is as far as it'll take them. Spurs is the best coach in the NBA by far, in my opinion. But they still only go as far as their shooting goes. Because at the end of the day, when Strus isn't on, if Gabe Benson is out and Kyle Lowry has to see 28 minutes instead of 20 minutes, that could work into the favor of the Celtics. It just can't. If Duncan Robinson has to play more minutes than they want him to, then they'll have to sit in the zone. It just the game plan changes if their shooting isn't rolling. Now, Cody's on the Heat. Caleb's on the Heat. Yeah. Oh, you're on mute, so I can't hear you.
Yeah. I was saying, sorry, I was muted, but what I wanted to say was leave it up to Charlotte to keep the worst twin.
Yeah, shout out Mitch and Mike, the two M&Ms. But I say this, I think that if the Heat are cold again, especially in Boston Garden, they'll lose game 5. And like you said, game 6 is game 7. And everybody, all role players shoot better at home. The Heat is literally filled with role players, so they should play better at home. But if the Heat can't make, I'll set the number 12 plus threes, they won't win. They won't win because that's how the team's built. They're built to go like that. They're built to play defense, make threes. That's how they're built. So I think if they go cold, the Celtics 100% have a chance to come back because the Celtics have 2 of the top 4 players in the series. They just do. And no matter how bad Jaylen Brown is, no matter how much grease is on the bottom of this dude's shoes where he can't stop slipping and falling, he's still a top 4 player in this series. So I think it wouldn't surprise me as much as anything else if the Celtics were able to force a game 7. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I agree. And that's another thing. The Celtics, they've yet to get a good Jaylen Brown game. He's been Mr. Consistency for the Celtics these entire playoff runs. And if they can get a good game out of him, and Jason Tatum is like arguably the best elimination game player in the NBA over the last couple of years, he's been really awesome. Like averaging 30.
And if Malcolm Brogdon stops playing like Kobe
10.
White, the Celtics will be okay. Like I don't know what's wrong with Malcolm Brogdon either.
That's Malcolm Ball Hogden.
That dude,
I don't know.
Brogdon and Jaylen Brown refuse to pass the ball sometimes, and it just baffles me because like Marcus Smart will try to throw it over his head, but Brogdon will see somebody wide open like, nah, I'm doing left hand scoop.
Yeah,
like,
minutes that feature Brogdon and Brown are not they're not bound for success. It's not happening. I like Brogdon next to Tatum. I like Brown next to Tatum. And maybe the both of them next to Tatum.
White. I like Derek White and Jaylen Brown minutes. I like their minutes together.
I love Derek White with I like Derek White with anybody because he just He plays hard all the time, and he gives you a real third scoring option sometimes, and so does Brogdon. But White has a bit higher basketball IQ, and probably he would be winning Sixth Man of the Year if he didn't have to start so many games. In my opinion, I do believe he's a better player than Malcolm Brogdon. But Malcolm Brogdon and Jaylen Brown, I like them out there if Tatum's out there. But if Tatum's not out there, they're like two badass little kids that, like, when you're not looking, they're trying to plot, they're trying to do something bad. Jaylen Brown's trying to shoot 20-foot fadeaway mid ranges and dunk over Bam Adebayo, while Malcolm Brogdon's trying to get to his right hand in his ankle socks and thinks he can beat Jimmy Butler off the dribble while shooting some BS floater.
Dude, Brogdon throws the worst. He throws the worst floaters, and like he has no touch. Like
that's what it is.
That's what it is. He has no touch. Like he can shoot threes, but his threes, if you look at him, there's no arc on it. It's just straight.
He shoots so weird. Like his arm,
his hand pushes like that.
Yep. Yeah, it's all the way out already. No elbow extended, and then
that's why he can't do floaters. That's why he can't do floaters. He has no touch.
And he also can't pass to Robert Williams. It's not possible. And they'd be such a filthy two-man game, but I don't know, man.
They would. JT and Marcus Smart, they throw Rob some good passes. I like JT. I like JT and Rob in the pick and roll over there only because of this. I think and this is just coming from a fan of the game. Tone, I wonder if you're going to agree. I think Jason Tatum has to be the primary ball handler to finish the series, and that's the reason why. Like you said, he's getting top 5 attention. Jason Tatum's unselfish enough to make the right plays. I'm not saying Jaylen Brown's selfish, but I'm also not saying Jaylen Brown's not selfish when it comes to scoring. If you put Tatum in that point and you make Horford the pick and popper, you make Williams the screen and roller, you make Miami's defense have to do more, in my opinion. Like, they're respecting Smart, but how much? They don't mind him shooting those threes when they're in the zone. Like, they don't mind that. That's not a terrible thing. It's better than JT or Jaylen Brown driving the basketball, getting a dump off the Robert Williams. So that's what I've been thinking these last couple games. I'm like, because Jason Tatum had the ball in his hands a lot in game 4, a lot. Like, not even to shoot, just to make the right play. And if you'll take 5 turnovers from him in a game like that, because he's making every single decision. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, and this is something I've been thinking about for a while in terms of like making the right play, and not to say Jason Tatum doesn't force shots sometimes. Every great scorer forces shots sometimes. But in terms of like making the right play in the right time, like he had some costly turnovers, but it's not like he was making dumb decisions. Like it was like he had the right read. He was trying to make a right read, and it was just poorly executed. He played, as much as he admires Kobe Bryant, I think he plays a lot more like LeBron James than Kobe Bryant in terms of trying to make the right play, not jacking anything up. However,
I think he's T-Mac all over again, but in a good way. Like T-Mac was that scorer who could do everything. Exactly.
Without getting swept in the first round.
Exactly. But as far as player goes, I think Tatum McGrady's a great comparison because McGrady can go get 60, but he also kept everybody involved. He rebounded. I think that's such a great comparison for Tatum offensively on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I would agree. But Tatum had some shots last night that, like, as much as people want to say, like, he does have some shades of Kobe Bryant. You can easily tell in the way he tries to score the basketball. He is easily trying to be like that dude. And people are like, oh, like, you'll like they just give him crap because he likes Kobe. Oh, well, man. Like, you have people in the league that's meat riding like LeBron James. Like,
he's still playing.
Oh, well, he can't praise somebody that he said the day he worked out with Kobe Bryant was the second best day of his life. Only second to his son being born. He's just a fan of the game, man. And there was a lot of plays where he was working mid-range. He was working getting to the cup. And that was one of the first times where I was like, yo, this is a quiet 30 ball. Like, very quiet. But yeah, nonetheless, Celtics have the best chance to make history. Is it likely? Probably not, because they can't defend the Garden. But nonetheless, it's been fun, man. Another All Hoops episode, which these will be coming to an end soon. But never fear, the NFL is fun. And Lamar Jackson has a contract. And his new offensive coordinator said, hey, we gonna run the ball less, and we gonna use Lamar's
quarterback,
arm.
Sir. You can actually play quarterback.
And we're not gonna get him hurt. It's gonna be fun for the Ravens. Honorary Ravens fan, of course, along with the future Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, shout out to Birds in general.
Lamar and Hurts in the Super Bowl next year will move mountains for mobile quarterback agenda.
I'll sell my kidney to make sure I'm in the top seat that I can be in for the Super Bowl if LJ makes it. Even though DeAndre Hopkins,
you and Danny got to catch a Ravens Steelers game. That would be
I told
awesome.
Danny, I told them like we got to go find somewhere. We got to find a way to go to a game. I think that'd be dope. And when the Ravens get DeAndre Hopkins, like I'm speaking into existence, when he just begs to get traded to the Ravens and we make it happen, then we'll have OBJ and DeAndre Hopkins and Rashad Bateman for 8 games, and then we'll have
and Zay Flowers, who they just drafted, and Zay Flowers like he's just oozing with confidence. It's gonna be fun. But that being said, that's all wrapped up. Make sure you guys subscribe, like, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening on the audio platforms, make sure you download, leave a 5-star rating, and vice versa. Make sure you head over to the opposite platform and show love. And make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, at Sideline Summit. We post content there essentially daily. Follow us on TikTok at Sideline Summit. Chris, anything to say before we head on out of here?
No, man. I hope everybody have a good time. I hope Jaylen Brown's brushing up on getting ready to go to the 6 in Toronto. He's either a Raptor or a Rocket, I fear. No, I'm just kidding. But no, y'all, I hope everybody has a good time, man. And y'all enjoy the show, man. That's it.
Yeah, man. From Tone and CB and honorary DC, who's not with us right now, we hope you guys enjoyed listening, and we will see you guys next week.
Peace.